Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 781. My opponent started off with e4, and I went with knight f6, the Alekhine's defense. And he pushed on with e5, which is the main response. And not a bad move at all, although what I've been seeing more in practice is this knight c3 move, which is it's an interesting way to play as well, but I often just play e5 here, which transposes usually into a four knights defense, sometimes into a Vienna game, but gets back into more familiar channels. You can also play with d5 here and kind of encourage him to go into the Alekhine's defense by pushing on with e5, but he can still decline that by taking. And well, this position is probably okay for black as well. Anyway, I haven't actually tried that one out. I normally just play after knight c3. I normally just play the e5 move because I'm familiar with those lines. Anyway, he went on with e5, which is the main move against the Alekhine's defense, and not a bad move too. It just kicks that knight, and then he kicks it again with c4. So trying to ask the knight if he can find a safe home. Actually, d4 is more popular at this point. White can follow up with c4 later, so it often leads to the same position, but it's a little more flexible because d4 can also be followed up with knight to f3, whereas c4 you're sort of committing to this variation. But this is not bad. The knight drops back and then he plays d4, so he gets the same kind of configuration anyway. He could also play c5 here. This is another line, although the knight just hops back to d4, and then black, as usual, tries to prove that these pawns have advanced a little too far, starts sniping at them with various pawn moves, principally d6. Anyway, an interesting way to play as well, I guess. But d4 is considered the best move there. d6, just immediately counterattacking the center. And then there's two ways to respond here. Typically, what I see is taking, and I think this is recommended to white players who are looking for a simple system against the Alekhines. f4 is also a good move, but it's a little more tactical, a little trickier, and black has counter chances. So this e takes d6 move, the top choice here, although only by a slight margin, is the way I've always played it. And like I said, it's supposed to give white a small but persistent advantage with a little more space on the center. So f4 is a little more ambitious, but gives black some counter chances. Anyway, I'm not so familiar with this because normally white just takes that. That's what I see in practice. So it's interesting to fight against the the four knights attack. I mean, the four pawns attack. But I should just take right away. That's the move I should play here. Taking and then developing knight to c6. The problem with developing knight to c6 first is that, as I played in the game, he could have played d5 here, kicked my knight back, and it really has the best square for it is actually to go back to b8. And well, you know, black is still okay here, but it seems a little awkward. So the normal way of playing this is d takes e5, so that now you play knight c6, and if d5 is played at this point, then you can grab the e-pawn. So that's a fine way to play, and that's how I should play it. One of my viewers, Yanis, recommended a gambit at this point after f4, playing the immediate g5, which looks interesting. Actually, if white follows the main line here, e takes d6, the chess engine likes this reply, e takes d6 again, opening up some lines, and taking here, just ignoring that, and developing the bishop and getting some gambit play like this. This looks pretty interesting for black. But there are other ways for white to play, and there's some lines I don't really like there. So, for example, instead of after g5, instead of taking, the chess engine actually recommends this move knight to c3. And after that, it seems to be pretty good for white. Say black develops with the bishop here, leaving the gambit pawn there if he wants to take it. Queen can come out to h5, and now the engine is recommending actually taking here, which I don't know about that. It brings the bishop forward, and at this position I'm a little bit I would rather be white in this position than black, I guess. Looks like white has, in addition to all the space, has also got a lot of development here. So anyway, but maybe Yanis has some suggested improvements after knight c3, queen h, bishop g7, queen h5. Maybe there's something better than bishop g7, or maybe something better than g takes f4. Anyway, there's always interesting possibilities there, but I think as far as I'm concerned, what I would play here is just the main line. I would take here and then play knight c6. So anyway, what I played knight c6 is slightly inaccurate. He could have played d5 already, although like I said, that's still playable for black. He played knight f3, and I went bishop g4, and yeah, we're out of the opening book at this point, and here he really should play d5. What he played was bishop e2, which was like the second choice, but the only way for white to keep any kind of advantage here, and a pretty decent advantage, is to play d4 now, d5 now, kick that knight. I can play knight to b4, and then let's see, he develops the bishop. The engine is recommending dropping this bishop back to f5, and trying to take advantage of some of these weak squares that have been created by white pushing all those pawns forward. Very typical play in the Alekhines. It makes me think, actually, that my bishop g4 move right here, yeah, after knight f3, I went bishop g4 in this position. Maybe I should have just gone directly to bishop f5 so that I always have this knight b4 option with an immediate threat. So probably a better way to play. Anyway, I went bishop g4 in the game. He went bishop e2, not the strongest response, and after this it seems to be about equal. So I took, he takes, and cancel that. Oh, he pushed on with d5. Taking also leads to equality, according to the chess engine. So it seems like his bishop e2 move, rather than playing d5, is the thing that allows me to equalize here. So he pushed on with d5, and well, I have to play this in the right order. I have to take here, so that if he takes my knight with the pawn, I can take back with the bishop. So that would be good for me. So he takes, and then I get knight to d4 in. So I've managed to find a home for all my pieces, and I think things are looking pretty good for me. I'm going to be able to get in e6 pretty quickly, develop the bishop and castle, and I should be fine. He castled here as well. He's going to try and get his pieces out quickly. Went ahead and took the bishop at this point. I wasn't sure how stable my knight was on that square. It could be undermined at any time with f takes e5, so I thought it was best to get rid of it. And here he should play queen takes f3. This is a way to keep things in the range of about even. In fact, this looks good for white at first, but because he's threatening to just take on e5 and bring out all these threats on f7, which is inadequately defended at the moment. But there's some nice defenses that black has here. One of them is knight takes c4, grab a pawn, and then if he tries to open up the f-file, grab another pawn, and at the same time defend f7. That might seem a little shaky, but you can also defend with just queen to d7. If he grabs here, then you can play e6, and this also works as a defense. So it seems like this is all about equal. Instead, he played rook to f3, and after this, he's actually black is starting to have an advantage. So, well, that's one of the things about the Alekhines defense, is it gets your opponent oftentimes into unfamiliar territory, and this can be taken advantage of. It's easy for people to go astray in unfamiliar ground. Okay, so now I play e6. I think my play is pretty logical here. Just want to open up this diagonal for the bishop. He goes ahead and takes on e5 now, and I get in this check. I want to be able to castle quickly, so I was looking at this mainly as a tempo move. But it had some other advantages as well. Let's see. Now, instead of castling, I went ahead and took on d5. Yeah, maybe I should have just castled there, but seems like this is okay as well. He goes knight to c3, and I went c6, defending the pawn. My idea was that I wanted to keep a pawn on this square, try and keep his knight from hopping into e4 there and going towards my king's side. But actually, in this position, the move knight takes c4 is given as better. And it's kind of interesting. There's some weaknesses that have been created in white's side that I'm not fully taking advantage of in the way I play it. In fact, well, just to show what happened, I went c6, played c takes d5, and I took back with the pawn. Actually, Chess Engine recommends taking back with the knight. But with this pawn there, it's kind of shielded my queen from attacking along the d file here. And we'll see there's tactics on the d file. So for example, in the game position, instead where I played c6 just defending the pawn, if I grabbed here, I thought this looked kind of shaky, but he can't actually take here. This is one example. I take, he takes, and I castle queenside. And this castling queenside comes with a big threat. There's actually, if the knight moves, there's a mate threat there. Well, depending on where it goes. And if the knight just drops back there to defend the mate threat, I can grab another pawn like this, and I'm just 2 pawns up. So that's all good. The Chess Engine actually gives the best line for white is as pretty crazy. It gives bishop h6, sacrificing the bishop. I take, and then knight takes d5, so he gets a pawn. I take a pawn, and then rook to f5. Looking at my pieces here. Anyway, gives this as better for black, but not so much. The other line, it's you know, like a couple pawns and something better, and here it's just around 1 pawn better. So anyway, there's some interesting tactical play going on here. Let's see, after knight c3, I played c6, played c takes d5. And for the same reason, I like I said, I was trying to keep control of c4 square, but it's better just to take with the knight here. And if he hops into d4, e4, hitting my bishop, this is all okay. I just bring my bishop back to e7, and I still have these latent threats on the back rank, so this seems to be okay. And if he tries something like rook to g3, trying to exploit my my weakened king side and my lack of castling, then there's this nice tactic here. Knight takes c3. If he trades queens, you'd think that might solve his problems, but this also comes with a mate threat, and so he has no time to grab my knight, and I actually end up a piece up in this line. So yeah, I would just, by taking back with a pawn, I'm sort of depriving myself of all these tactics on the back rank. So I was keeping control of more squares in the center, but well, that was the trade-off. There were just I should have been thinking more about the tactics on the back rank there. And so at this point, he can actually, after c takes d5, he could actually get an advantage by playing rook g3. So you know, I went from having an advantage to giving it back to him. I've kind of covered up my tactical threats that I had, and he's got some threats on the back rank. If I castle, he plays bishop h6, which is pretty annoying, maybe wins the exchange. So g6 needs to be played, and then he can play bishop h6 anyway, which will prevent me from castling. So the combination, I guess, of my not castling earlier and then my not taking advantage of these back rank tactics has left me in a difficult position. So I was really saved by my opponent's blunder here when he played knight takes g5. And this just loses a piece. He might have been thinking of this line. Say if I take with a knight, he's got rook to d3, and you know, that's just a nice skewer there, and he's just winning the piece back. So that's probably what he was thinking. But I don't have to take with a knight. I can take with the queen, and now the skewer doesn't really help. I can just grab another pawn, and I'm not getting mated on the back rank, am I? Yeah, my rook is covering there, and my knight is covering there. So it's all good for me after this. So let's just go through the next several moves fairly quickly, because I just keep the advantage. You know, I mean, he tried to complicate things, but I have a winning advantage all through the rest of it. There are just a couple spots I wanted to look at as we go forward where I could have improved and finished things off a little quicker. And then right here, this was the first one. You know, I played a4 here to kind of isolate this b pawn, and you know, I'm just trying to exchange off the pawns and get to an endgame where, and I don't want to exchange off all the pawns, but I want to exchange off at least his dangerous pawns, and so I'm trying to neutralize his passed pawns on the queen side. So that was the idea with a4, was isolate this pawn so I can attack it. But, well, once again, there were better moves here. Rook to c8 is the suggestion. And the idea here, let's see, do I show it here? I mean, basically there's some checkmating ideas with the rook coming down here and the bishop coming to this diagonal in one way or another. So it's pretty dangerous. If he grabs the pawn here, let's see, I can place my king here, and then he blocks, trying to stop me from coming in to the back rank. I can trade off that rook and then take. And this is just in time. It not only takes that pawn, but it covers this pawn. So you have to calculate that out nicely. It's a bit dangerous to play like that if you're not sure you can rescue your position at the end by stopping those pawns. Because the king is actually, well, it's my move. Oh, back up here. It was my move here. Yeah, my king, if I take, is too slow to stop the pawn, so I have to take with the bishop. But I could have played king here. Anyway, doesn't matter because the bishop can stop it, but you do have to calculate it out. There are some dangers with advanced passed pawns. Let's see, and if instead of rook c6 he, say, tries to attack another pawn, then you can go for this tactic of king here and bishop takes e5, setting up some mating threats over against the king. So that would have been good, best play there, and that would have brought the game to a quicker finish. Went to a4, it still keeps a winning edge. He takes, go king f5. So a lot of this is kind of the same. And I just switched my rook over here with the idea of trading pawns and simplifying things on the queen side. He pushed his pawn, I grab one, rook a7, attacking my bishop, and I went king f6, defending it. And so once again, this is even faster. There's this, well, it's a little bit longer though. Let's see. So rook b1 check. He's allowed the check. King has to go back. And then bishop to d4. And the bishop is going to sneak around and mate the king. So like he can throw in a check here. King takes e6. That's right. I should grab the pawn. He can grab a pawn hitting my bishop. But now the king gets mated after this check. If the king goes back to h1, bishop f2, it's a check. King goes here, and bishop to g3 is mate. And yep, yeah. So that's it. So that was a forced mate from that position after bishop g1 check. So anyway, I just thought that was a nice little mating pattern. If you want to try and visualize it here, it's the check forcing the king back. This pawn is playing an important role, keeping the king from coming out and later defending the bishop. So anyway, the bishop hops in here with a check, comes back to f2 with a check, and then it ends up on g3 with the checkmate. So nice little dance with the rook and bishop. You often see these kind of maneuvers with rook and bishop where they deliver some checks in the right order to just kind of get everything lined up for the final mating pattern. Okay, so anyway, I went king f6 here when he attacked my bishop. I just defended it. And this is still winning, but anyway, it's kind of prolonging the game. And he just sort of played some, I think we might have both been low on time at some point, because I know I was moving quickly here. And I was managing to find all of these moves. Yeah, and then finally he's just kind of frustrated, I guess. He takes that bishop, but there's no hope, and he resigned at this point. Anyway, it was an interesting game, I thought. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.